Hi, this is Rich Colin, Director of Football Operations for the Southern California Collegiate Football Officials Association. We're moving into week 4 this week of our games. We're going to talk a little bit about some decorum issues that came up last weekend. We had 8 ejections in our 17 games, way too many. We're going to talk a little bit about it. We've got 6 teachable moment plays that we hope that you are able to learn from. And with that, Greg, let's start it.
So really quickly, just to kick us off this week, we wanted to review the decorum policy for the 3C2A that was sent out at the beginning of the season. Commissioner Satoris talked to us about it in our preseason meeting, and Rich stuck on the line here to just talk through it really quick. If you need a copy of this, it was distributed, preseason there to us, but your referees, will have this going out after the or with this video. So Rich, any comments on this decorum policy for this week?
Thank you, Greg, for putting that up. This was done by all the commissioners at all the conferences, not just football. This is for every student athlete, state of California, over 25,000 that participate each year in community college athletics. We felt that the game was getting a little bit out of hand, and we wanted to bring it back. And this is what we put together. It took a lot of time and effort, and it doesn't answer all our questions, but it's something as a guideline that we can use. Referees on your pregame this week, talk about some of the things, and we all know what bad behavior and decorum violations are. Let's address them. I don't want to have more ejections than we need, but if it takes that, this is what we have to do, because the state is dedicated to cleaning up this game.
Any messages for the coaches out there too, Rich?
Yeah, I'm going to send this to the coaches as we do every week, and our athletic directors. So again, this is a statewide effort. We're not picking on football. Every sports, the signers in every sport has seen this, and it's again, we just want to take the game back and get it under control.
So referees, do us a favor, review these bullet points in your pre-games this week. Coaches, please review it with your assistant coaches and your student athletes. We are going to continue to enforce this decorum policy. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
So really quickly to kick off our plays this week, wanted to revisit this double pass that we talked about in the bulletin last week. And ultimately, I think I answered about 15 or 16 text messages, had a couple of calls with some folks. But ultimately, really what we wanted to get across here was that first and foremost, coaches, any of the coaches that are watching this, please make this a backwards pass, an obvious backwards pass. Do not let us, kind of have to or make a ruling on this. Make this pass backwards, make it big so that our flanks do punch backwards. Everybody knows it's backwards so that we don't have to rule on whether or not we have a second illegal forward pass. And flank officials, just to reiterate, need you guys to move into the backfield and have an opinion on this play. Primary would be the flank official that the ball is being thrown away from. Secondarily, the other flank official at the top of the screen there in this case, could also have an opinion on it, but feel free to step into the offensive backfield in order to make a ruling on this, because the flank officials here for these types of passes, you are the primary. And in this case, if we did have a backwards pass, the mechanic would be to punch into the offensive backfield. And even if it's really close like this one was, and you do have a forward pass, punching forward would not be a bad mechanic in this case, just so that everybody knows that you had this pass forward here. In this clip, we're going to take a look at illegal touching by an eligible receiver. Keep an eye on the slot receiver at the top of the screen there. He's going to kind of do a bit of a crossing route with the receiver wide. Goes out of bounds on his own. Really, there's no contact with the defender. We see the deep flank come in, throwing a hat down, which indicates that he had a receiver there out of bounds. Good mechanic there by the deep official. But just to remember here that if this receiver goes out of bounds on his own, there is no reestablishing himself in bounds, and there doesn't look like there's any contact here with the defender. So this Team A player does go out of bounds and is not eligible to return in bounds, even if he reestablishes himself in bounds. So again, the rule here being Team B drives that player out of bounds, that player can reestablish himself and then legally touch the ball. But since he went out of bounds on his own, he does not have a chance to reestablish himself. The penalty here would be illegal touching, but because it was a previously eligible receiver, there is no yardage penalty for this. It is just a loss of down, and move on to the next down. As a reminder, if it was illegal touching by an ineligible receiver, then we would have a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot and also loss of down. Our next clip here, we're going to take a look at a free kick situation. So pay attention to the deep receiver on the near end of the field. We've got a deep kick. He's going to go out of bounds and then touch the ball, while out of bounds. And we spotted this here, at the 1 yard line. When this player goes out of bounds, as we just talked about in the previous clip, that he is not blocked out of bounds. He cannot come back in and touch this ball on his own. And because he is out of bounds in this situation while touching the ball is considered out of bounds. And this would be a free kick infraction, more than likely taken from the 35-yard line for Team B here. So remember, when a player is out of bounds or has yet to establish himself back in bounds, if he's forced out by another player, they are not legally able to touch the ball, and the ball is considered out of bounds. And here we just wanted to review our momentum rule again. Keep an eye on the receiver and the DB at the top of the screen there. DB is going to make a really great interception there at the about the 1 yard line, half yard line, and is going to be tackled there in the end zone. I think Rich is going to put in his bulletin this week that I think verbatim that, hey, we're not that good necessarily, out there on the field, and we don't need to be that good. In this case, calling a touchback, would be just fine. If you do have momentum, and we know that momentum begins at the 5 yard line. So if this was an interception here, if we did have a fumble, et cetera, and his original momentum brings him into the end zone 5 yards and in, we would like a beanbag down here to mark the spot of momentum. So if you're going to put this at the 1 yard line, 2 yard line, 3 yard line, et cetera, get your beanbag out, put it down, lets everybody know that you had possession, inside the field of play and not in the end zone there. But not a bad thing here necessarily that we put this at the 1. It's really close. But as Rich reiterated there in his bulletin, we don't need to be that good. This can be called a touchback, be 1st and 10 from the 20. We're going to take a look at a great example of a horse collar tackle. A lot of conversation this week on our Discord on whether or not this should be roughing the passer. But this quarterback here, is ultimately a runner before he becomes a passer there and gets thrown down to the ground by the nameplate area there. Kind of a good example there of a horse collar tackle. If it wasn't, by the numbers there, or his kind of nameplate area, and was just kind of thrown to the ground, you could have a personal foul for unnecessary roughness. But in this case, again, a lot of conversation about whether or not this was roughing the passer, unnecessary roughness. We can just go with your horse collar tackle here. I know this quarterback is outside the tackle box, but remember the rule change for this year is that a horse collar tackle is now illegal, even if it is on a back inside the tackle box before they've left the tackle box there. New rule change for 2024. And in our final play this week, we're going to actually ask the crews here to take a look at this and have a pregame discussion on it. We're going to pay attention or look at the action at the bottom of the screen on the widest receiver there. Is this a foul? Whose foul is it? What foul would it be? And how would you report this to your referee? And what would the enforcement be? So Bottom of the screen there, it looks like receiver A88, and that action on the defensive back. So ultimately answer, do you have offensive pass interference here? What are the components that comprise of pass interference? When do pass interference restrictions start for Team A? All good pregame discussions for this week. Have a great week 4, everybody. Slow whistles and call what you see. Take care.